Hi guys, this is Heather with Creativity by Heather BE. Welcome back to my channel. Today I am creating a card for the MFT Sketch Challenge. This week's challenge is very clean and simple, and this is a challenge that they do on their blog every Wednesday. And I decided to do a Christmas card for this. So I am using primarily MFT products for this. The stamp set I'm using is the Happy Pawlidays, which came out last December. And then the background stamp is the Paw Print background. And I'm also going to be using some My Favorite Things Vellum. What I'm going to do is heat emboss on this vellum, and then I'm also going to put some ink on it. So it's kind of a technique video along with just a card. And I have not used this background stamp yet. So when you get a new background stamp, if you've never received one or you haven't used one, you have to peel that backing off. The stamp should be able to be moved, as you can see in the video there, pretty freely. And I usually just discard that paper. You can put it back on, I just get rid of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to heat emboss the paw prints in white on this vellum. And so I'm using my anti-static tool, so that way my embossing powder will stay only where I want it to. And I'm going to use my Brutus Monroe embossing ink, and I'm just going to ink this up really, really well. And I don't need to ink up the entire thing. I am going to ink up a good portion of it, but I don't need to ink the entire thing because my paper is not nearly the size of the stamp. So once I get that inked up, I'm going to lay my vellum down, and once you lay it down, make sure you don't move it. I'm going to grab a piece of copy paper and set it on top. Now if you'll notice, I always have one hand in place while I'm moving the other. So that way I'm holding my paper. As you'll see in a moment, they're off to the side. You can also use a roller, a brayer, if you would like. I used it a little bit, but ended up primarily just using the paper. And you can see it stamped out beautifully. So now I am just going to add some Brutus Monroe Alabaster embossing powder to this, heat set it, and I've got my vellum panel. So if you've never heat set or embossed on vellum, one of the biggest tip you need to know is make sure your heat gun is really, really hot, because vellum will warp and it will burn very easily. So if it's really hot, then you can take it right to it and just kind of go off, and it'll melt quickly and you won't burn your paper. So I'm going to be using red and green ink from My Favorite Things, and what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to flip my panel over. So the side that I just embossed is actually laying down on my glass mat. And I'm not going to use an ink blending tool. I'm going to take my cube ink. This is the red from My Favorite Things, and I'm just going to swipe it over, as you can see. And it's very dark. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a paper towel and wipe that up a little bit. It's not going to take all the color off, as you'll see here in a moment. It's just going to kind of lighten it up a little bit. For this project, I decided to do alternating stripes since it's going to be Christmas, and do the red and green. So I'm going to do the red and then the green, wipe that off, and just continue that down to the end. And you'll see once I get it flipped over, it's really awesome. You get this cool effect through the back, as you can see. You still have that embossing, so it's not an emboss resist. So you're not embossing over and clearing it off like you would ink. You're actually doing it from the back. So for the stamp set, I chose the little dog that has the lights all over him. And my idea for this was to put the dog, the tree, a stack of gifts, and a stack of lights for the 4 little areas. And I apologize here, when I was coloring the dog, he was moved down just out of camera view. And so I did not get that filmed where you could actually see it. However, the rest of the coloring you can. I will have all the colors that I used linked below, linked below, and also on my blog. So if you're interested in the colors, very simple coloring. I am by no means a wonderful Copic colorer. I have bought them, I play with them, I just kind of watch videos and just kind of figure it out. I do know it takes practice, so I've been practicing, and don't get frustrated with it. So real quick while this is going through, just to tell you the colors I used. The red on the dog and the red on the ornaments and some of the gifts that I used primarily was R24 and R27. Now, if it was an area where I could use 3 colors, I did add in R29 as my darkest. For the tree, I used G03, G05, and G14. Now for the little bulbs, the green bulbs, lights on the dog, things like that, and the gifts, I only used G03 and G05. For the star on the tree, I used Y13 and Y11. And then for the little yellow lights, I just used Y13. The dog, I decided to do gray. And that's why I love the stamp set. You can customize these dogs to whatever color you want. You could do them as brown. You can make them look like your own pet, somebody's pet who you're sending it to. So for the dog, I did C1, C3, and C5. And then for the tree trunk, or excuse me, the tree stand trunk type thing, I did E21 and E23. So most of the coloring, if it was blended, except for the tree, because it was a large area, was really only 2 colors. So I am going to color all of these out, and you'll notice I had stamped these out actually on 3 panels because I wanted more lights, but I didn't want to move my stamps because after I get done coloring, one of the tricks that I got from Jennifer McGuire, and it just makes your images pop so much. If you're using a stamping tool, leave your stamps in the tool while you're coloring. And then when you're done, put your paper back in, re-ink it, and stamp it again, and it'll make those lines crisp and black again. Because you know when you're coloring, we stay in the lines, but you're still going up over the lines a little bit, so it just really brings that image back to life, and you'll see I'll do that here in the video. So I wanted to have some extra lights and a couple extra gifts, and I'm actually going to end up, when I put the card together, stamp out 2 more gifts and color them because of the size of the tree. It was kind of unproportioned in the card, and so I needed the gifts to stack a little higher. So this is where I've left my stamps in my MISTI, and I'm going to put them back in. If you don't have corners, the MISTI corners, which I do not, I just make sure my cardstock is clear over in the corner when I stamp it, and I just put it back in. And I will tell you, the fear was still here after all this coloring of, oh my goodness, what if I restamp this in black and it isn't lined up? I'm going to have to start again. So it was lined up, thank goodness, and you can see how the lines get crisp again. So we're back to our panel here. And with vellum, as you know, if you've worked with it, you have to be careful with adhesives because it will show through. So the nice thing about doing a panel like this is if you're putting a lot of stuff on it, like I did with these die cuts, you can put the glue or your adhesive behind all of those die cuts and then just in the little corners. So I did stamp out a banner with Versamark ink, I believe is what I used, and the sentiment for the banner says, "May your days be furry and bright." Thought that was cute, fit with the little dog and the lights, and of course went right underneath on the bottom per the sketch challenge. So I'm just going to attach this to a Nina 110-pound card base, and I am going to cut the edges off of the little sentiment strip. And then I decided I wanted to add some Nuvo crystal glaze. Love this stuff. When I first got it, I wasn't real crazy about it because I felt like it flowed out a little more than the glossy accents, but I've kind of figured it out and I really like it a lot. It's very clear, but not quite as thick as the glossy accents. So I went in and did all of the light bulbs, the star on the tree. I did add some glitter to the tree and some of the gifts, and then I went in and did the bows. I also took 2 little light bulbs I had left and put them around the sentiment. And I will tell you, those are hiding a mistake. I used Versamark ink, VersaFine ink, and you know, sometimes it's still a little wet, and I picked it up and touched it and smeared some of the ink, so I just stuck that little yellow light bulb right on top of it and hid that mistake. So if you make those mistakes, just keep on going. And there's our final card. A lot of fun to do, very simple. I'll keep this up for Christmas. Love being able to use your background stamp. I encourage you to try this with vellum. It was very easy. You can do it for any colors. You could do rainbow behind it, anything that you want. you could use this vellum for. Such an awesome technique, fun, and just gives your cards a little bit of a different look. So thanks for hanging out with me, and if you like this video, don't forget to like it and subscribe, and have a great night.